I am Nahid Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers.
For those of you who actually maybe thought about joining us in the fast this year today, that is a great honor for us, and we thank you for that. For those of you who didn't, what we would like to ask you to do is join us in the last hour of the fast. The last hour of the day is often the most challenging part of the day, so if you could please refrain from eating or drinking, we would be very grateful. So we begin all of our events with a Quranic recitation, and I would like to ask Brother Muhammad Ali and his wife's sister Omnia to come up and to please provide the recitation and then the translation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها وقد جعلتم الله عليكم كفيلا إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون ولا تكونوا كالتي نقضت غزلها من بعد قوة أنكاثا تتخذون أيمانكم دخلا بينكم أن تكون أمة هي أربى من أمة إنما يبلوكم الله به وليبينن لكم يوم القيامة ما كنتم فيه تختلفون ولو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء ولتسألن عما كنتم تعملون صدق الله العظيم.
God commands justice, doing good, and generosity towards relatives, and He forbids what is shameful, blameworthy, and oppressive. He teaches you so that you may take heed. Fulfill any pledge you make in God's name, and do not break oaths after you've sworn them, for you have made God your surety. God knows everything you do. Do not use your oaths to deceive each other, like a woman who unravels the thread she has firmly spun, just because one party may be numerous than another. God tests you with this, and on the day of resurrection he will make clear to you those things you have differed about. If God so willed, he would have made you all one people, but he leaves to stray whoever he will and guides whoever he will. You will be questioned about your deeds. Do not use your oaths to deceive each other, lest any foot should slip after being firmly placed, unless you should taste the penalty for having hindered others from the path of God and suffer a terrible torment. Do not sell for a small price any pledge made in God's name. What God has to give is better for you, if only you knew. What you have runs out, but what God has endures, and we should certainly reward those who remain steadfast according to the best of their actions. To whoever, male or female, does good deeds and has faith, we shall give them a good life and reward them according to the best of their actions.
Thank you, Brother Ali and Sister Onia. And now I'd like to invite the chairman of our board, Brother Farouk Saeed, to come up and provide a welcome to the event.
Ladies and gentlemen, Salam alaikum, which means God's peace be unto you. Good evening to you all. First, let me say that I am extremely happy and proud to see all of you here today, especially on a warm weekday evening, where we can easily procrastinate and not come to events such as this. But your showing up here shows your commitment and your support for interfaith events such as this one, and your desire to learn. So we appreciate it. For the benefit of those who may be here for the first time, I'd like to share with you what Salam stands for. Salam actually is acronym for Sacramento Area League of Associated Muslims. Salam came into existence 27 years ago. This very hall where we're sitting is our community center / school building. We have an full-time elementary school. We also have a very large weekend Sunday school which has 200 plus students. We have our fairly new prayer hall and the learning center across, which you will be able to see the prayer hall when we go to the prayer. So we have a prayer hall upstairs. We have a auditorium downstairs, which is for learning, seminars, classes, and so forth. We also have a big portion of that building as a library, which is not fully functional at this moment, but we're working towards it, and it will be soon a source for knowledge for anyone who chooses to. Islam Center is open to the community at large. We really don't segregate your religious background, national origin, color, race, whatever. You are welcome to step into Islam Center at any time. First Saturday of every month, Islam offers a class called Discover Islam. For anyone who wants to know basics of Islam, can come to Islam Center and learn about Islam for themselves. Islam takes great pride in taking leadership role in the community and trying to make this community a safer, a pleasant community to live in, and in recognition of those efforts, in April, Islam Center received FBI Director's Community Leadership Award, which was really humbling for us. Also, for the benefit of those who may not know what this iftar means, because we have this event titled as Interfaith Iftar. Iftar really means breaking of the fast. Muslims are supposed to fast approximately 30 days, depending upon the Hijri calendar, 29 or 30 days, from before dawn until sunset. And we break the fast at the sunset prayers. During this time, we must refrain from all types of foods and liquids. Absolutely nothing goes into your system. Besides the spiritual value of fasting, really there is a underlying reason for fasting, which is to feel for the hungry and those who feel starvation. It really makes you think about those who in our world don't have food to eat maybe more than 24 hours a day, and we are lucky still that we have a big meal in the morning time and a big meal in the evening time, and yet there are those people who really don't dictate what time they will be starting their fast and what time they will be ending their fast. So we must do whatever possible to help those who face hunger and starvation. So with this, I welcome you all to the 13th annual Interfaith Banquet. Interfaith Iftar Banquet, I would say. This tradition started back in 2001. It has been going really strong since then, and it is due to the Sacramento Interfaith community's support and efforts. So I thank you for those. I'd like to recognize some special folks that are here tonight, and what I would like to do is announce your names, and I will ask them to please stand up and stay up until I've gone through all the names, and then we will give them a round of applause. So I start with Honorable Dave Jones, California State's Insurance Commissioner. Honorable Marika Yuara, California State Assembly Member, if she is here. Honorable Roberta Bicklashton, Sacramento County Supervisor, District 4. Honorable Steve Cohen, Sacramento County Council Member. Honorable Darrell Fong, Sacramento City Council Member. Honorable Steve Hansen, Sacramento City Council Member. Honorable Lucas Precious, City of Davis Council Member. Honorable Don Saylor, Yolo County Supervisor. Now we can give them a round of applause. From the public officials, we have U.S. Attorney Mr. Van Wagner, Sean Besser from U.S. Attorney's Community Relations Office, Manny Alvarez, FBI Acting Special Agent in Charge, Chief Sam Summers from Sacramento Police Department, Deputy Chief Brian Louis, Sacramento Police Department. Give him a round of applause. And second, my apologies if I have missed anyone who was here from the elected officials or the public officials. And before I leave, I just have one message. That we may all have different religions, different languages, different colored skins, but we all come from the same human race. Thank you for being here tonight.
So one of the things we like to do is to invite some members of our community to share some of their experiences growing up fasting, and to kind of give you folks an idea about what it's like and kind of the sentiment around the whole event and holiday, really. One person I'd like to ask to come up is Mr. Basamel Kara. He is the executive director of the Sacramento chapter of the Council of American Islamic Relations, or CARE, and many of you may know him from the many boards he sits on and the programs he leads, including the American Leadership Forum. I understand some of those folks are here today too. So Basim will share some Ramadan reflections with us from his week.
Good evening, everyone. Salam alaikum. Peace be upon you all. I just see a show of hands of the Egyptian Americans in the crowd today. Egyptian Americans, raise your hands high. Okay, all right. So I've been asked to share my Ramadan experience. I call this my Egyptian Ramadan experience. So at the age of 5, we left San Francisco and moved to Cairo, Egypt. Now my parents wanted us to learn the language, the culture, and the religion. So of course, as any good Muslim, we went to St. Peter's School. So Cairo was a magical place for this young American kid. A city of over 20 million. And I'll never forget the Ramadans we spent there. You might wonder why in the world would young people look forward to a month where many people assume you're just going to starve yourself. And I hope to shed some light on that in the next few minutes. So Cairo is a city of over 23 million during the day. 23 million during the day. It's one of the safest cities in the world. Okay, maybe not right now, but I swear there's not revolutions going on. It is one of the safest cities. Now, so of course at the age of 5, we wanted to be like the big kids and fast all day long. And our parents would say, no, you can fast all day when we reach the age of puberty. So the compromise was that we would fast half day. So each day, we would wait for the cannon that our parents told us was somewhere on the Nile, that would, once it shoots, it symbolized, it ushers in the time to eat. So we would start eating our dates and drinking tamar hindi, which is tamarind, or hibiscus, kalkade. And then if you're out in the streets during the time for breaking your fast, no need to worry. In each neighborhood, there's what's called mercy tables, where folks would put food and drinks, and for the travelers and folks with lesser means would come and eat. And then at home, we would break our fast with our family, our friends, and then of course we would watch a special TV program that would only air in Ramadan. Then we would go head out to the mosque where we do our special Taraweeh prayers. And then after that, the fun would only begin. So then we would take our what's called Fawanis Ramadan, our Ramadan lanterns. All the kids from the entire neighborhood would take their colorful lanterns outside. Kind of reminded me of Halloween for some reason. So you know in Halloween, we have our bright orange jack-o'-lantern candy buckets. and all the kids are just going around with these colorful things. It's kind of somewhat similar to that. And then we would play what's called bim bim. Now, bim bim are these small little pebbles that they would cover in paper. Now, I never figured out what it is, but every time you throw it, it would pop, right? So now, luckily, this Ramadan tradition, we didn't import to the United States. I mean, could you imagine a bunch of Muslim kids throwing exploding objects around? I don't think that's a good idea, and I think our friends from that would concur. Now, I'll tell you, people at night, people don't sleep in Cairo. People don't sleep during Ramadan. So the stores would actually open after the Taraweeh prayers. The stores would open around midnight. So families would get together, go shopping, they would go have ice cream, desserts, and then drink the best mango and orange juice. And those Egyptians that are in here know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Now, if we don't go out, we would stay in the neighborhood and play this game called Masakt al-Malik. Who remembers that? Anyone remember that? Catch the King. Now I gotta remind you, Cairo is a city, of just apartment blocks as far as the eye can see, right? So we would play this game, Masakt al-Malik, Catch the King, which is like hide and go seek on steroids, where you would have like over 100 kids playing this game. You start off with one person, right? And then everyone goes and hides. They hide under cars, in trees, in the stairwells of buildings. And then, of course, some of the older kids, they would cheat, and they would get on the metro, which is equivalent to the light rail, and go to another part of the city and wait a few hours, and then come back and hoping they can be the king. Because what happens in this game, the first person starts off, and then they try to when you see the next person, they join you, and then they look for the rest, and you just keep doing that, you keep adding that, and the last person you catch is the king. Now, another memorable part was the suhoor, the breakfast before the sunrise. So, for young children, the only time they really want to get up, it's probably on Saturdays to get up for cartoons. But we actually could, every night of Ramadan, we wanted to get up for suhoor because the mom would make the best foods, the delicacies that we dreamed of every year. Kind of reminded me of Christmas Eve, right? So Christmas Eve, you get your gifts. So instead of getting gifts, for 30 days, we just get the best food. Then Ramadan would end with Eid al-Fitr, celebration of the fast break, which is very similar to Christmas Day. You go to the mosque or a major hall or a sports arena, and then you have your congregational prayer, and after that you have a festival, and folks will dress in their colorful traditional attire, and then the day will be filled with hugs and gifts. So Ramadan is a special month for children and adults, and we look forward to it every single year. The spirituality, the food, the games, and of course, remembering the poor. And I want to thank all of you for allowing us to share our Ramadan with you.
Thank you, Bassem. How many of you want to suddenly fast now? That's very inspirational. But let me ask you, of the non-Muslims here, who of you joined us in fasting today? Can I see a show of hands? Well, I want to have a big round of applause for everybody. Next, I'd like to ask Sister Rihanna to come up. Sister Rihanna is an important volunteer in our community. And in fact, for any of you who were able to join us at the event at the Crest Theater that we just put on, it was a wonderful, wonderful musical event. Sister Rihanna was really the motion behind that and really did a lot of work on that. And I'm grateful to have her come up and share some of her memories of Ramadan. Sister Rihanna.
Assalamu alaikum. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you. I was asked to speak about my best Ramadan experience. While I have many beautiful memories of Ramadan over the years, there's one in particular that stands out in my mind. It was the end of September in 2005. We had decided to move to Amman, Jordan. We arrived 2 days before Ramadan. I was a bit stressed, being in a new country, not speaking the language. I'm half Mexican and half Pakistani. I guess you could say it was a bit of a culture shock. I couldn't find tortillas anywhere. And let me tell you, when I start my fast, I usually like to have a tortilla with my meal. The day before Ramadan, I was already missing my extended family. I knew Ramadan would be different that year without them. That evening, I set my alarm for suhoor, the morning meal, and went to sleep. A few hours later, the next morning, I was awakened by the rhythmic beating of drums circulating throughout the neighborhood. I looked out the window and saw an older gentleman walking down the street with drums, waking everyone up for suhoor. I assumed it was something special just for the first day of Ramadan, but no, there he was every single morning to wake us up for suhoor. I didn't need my alarm anymore. And to be honest with you, I actually missed it after Ramadan. That year, I didn't need a Ramadan schedule to let me know what time to stop eating in the morning, when to pray, or even when to break my fast. I just had to listen for the beautiful adhan, the call to prayer, which resonated through our neighborhood 5 times a day from the nearby masjid. Yeah, I still missed my family, but honestly, I really didn't have a lot of time to think about it. We were invited to iftars almost every night. By the end of Ramadan, I think I knew everybody in the neighborhood. Even though we were thousands of miles away from the support and love of our family, I realized God's love has no boundaries, and the spirit of Ramadan captured the essence of His love in the hearts of everyone we met that holy month.
I missed our now. So let me backtrack here and say this man needs no introduction to our community. Imam Aziz actually has some very special thoughts to share with us on sharing the blessings of Ramadan, and I would like to ask him to please come up and share those thoughts with us.
As you can see, myself and the board, we have a very special relationship. I'm just joking. I'm honored to be here to welcome all of you. In fact, it is not an exaggeration to say that Ramadan for us here, Muslims in Sacramento, can never be the same without having you guys with us. Giving us the honor of sharing with you one of our most precious meals, perhaps the only meal of a fasting day. It doesn't feel the same anymore. I've been in other communities, and although the tradition of sharing the Ramadan break fast with everyone has become quite rampant around the country, ever since I came to Sacramento 8 years ago, there isn't a single Ramadan that has passed without us having our friends and brothers and sisters and guests from the wider community joining us. So your presence here honors us and brings a lot of delight and pleasure to our hearts and makes our Ramadan experience that much more special for us. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and God bless you. That's a good time for a round of applause. How many of you likes riddles? I like riddles. Here's a riddle for you. It is said that in the ancient world there was this merchant who was very, very wealthy. And he was extremely wealthy that he was able to marry 4 wives. He was a Muslim, by the way. Or a Mormon, for that matter. Is that a cheap jab? No, it's not. So he lived in the ancient world before civilization. He was very wealthy, and he took 4 wives because he was able to, because he could. The 4th wife was his favorite wife. She was the most beautiful. He loved her so much, although she didn't give him that much attention. And he spent most of his time talking to her. Bought her everything she wanted and basically satisfied all of her needs. The 3rd wife was the one that you could call the trophy wife. He took her everywhere. He showed her off to his friends. And he certainly loved her, but not as much as he loved his 4th wife. And then the 2nd wife, which he also loved, but probably a little bit less than his 4th and 3rd wives. But that one was his confidant. It's the one that he shared secrets with, the one that he consulted and looked for advice and recommendations and everything. And then there was the 1st wife. And the 1st wife was the one he was least interested in. Although the 1st wife obviously was the one that loved him the most. He wasn't interested in her to the extent that he wasn't even feeding her right. So over time she got emaciated and became very ill and very, very skinny, as you might imagine. Times passed, and eventually he's on his deathbed. And he's about to leave this world. and he is not able to imagine that he has to leave everything he loved behind. So he summons his beloved wives and asks them to sit right next to him on his bed, and basically invited them to do something that is very strange. He said, I'm going to my grave tonight, I feel it, and I want you guys to come with me. Would you leave this world and join me? The fourth wife immediately stood up and walked away. Right? The third wife told him, I liked you while you were around, but the minute you die, I will marry another man. And then she picked herself up and walked away. The second wife said to him, I really loved you, probably more than most, but all I can do is walk with you all the way to your grave, but then after that, I still have to go away. And while he was in his shock of sobbing and crying and weeping, he heard this frail voice coming from the background telling him, I will go with you anywhere, for I have never loved anyone more than you. So he looked around and he realized that that voice was that of his first wife, the one he gave the least amount of attention. This is a riddle. And the man died, and the only one that actually went with him to the grave was his first wife. Now, this riddle is an invitation for monogamy, because polygamous relationships are disastrous, as you must have noticed. But it is also an important riddle because the merchant is every single one of us. All of us, men and women, were married to 4 wives. We have 4 partners, 4 spouses, whatever you want to call them, right? The 4th spouse is your physical body that you take care of most of the time. You feed, you give comfort, whatever it asks for, you satisfy, right? And that's the one you care for the most, and that's the one you love the most, the flesh. And the 3rd wife is your wealth. It's what you wear, it's what you ride, it's the nice fancy watch and the big fancy home and the luxurious car that we drive around and boast and show off. Show other people what we have. And the 2nd wife is our parents and friends and family that really care about us, but all they can do is accompany us all the way to the grave, after which they can't do anything. And the 1st wife, first spouse, the one that loves you the most, the one that cares about you the most, but yet is getting the least amount of your attention, is your soul. That's the one we don't care about, we don't pay attention to, we don't feed, we don't provide nutrition or nurture, and we let our souls rot and rust over the course of our lives. Now, why is Ramadan great, and why do I bring up this riddle? Because we as Muslims feel that it is only in Ramadan that we weaken the 4th wife and give strength to the 1st. We tell our 4th spouse, you've been getting enough attention for 11 months. Now it's time for us to cast you aside, to neglect you a little bit, because we have the 1st spouse to care about. We have our souls to nurture. You've been getting all the food you want, all the water and all the comforts you've been asking for. Now this is the time to pay a little attention to our poor souls that have been entirely neglected all year long. What is the meaning of Ramadan? There are many Muslims, by the way, who might not necessarily understand the meaning of the word itself. Yes, it is a month in the lunar calendar, but what does it mean? The word Ramadan in Arabic means something that sets something else on fire. That's literally what it means. And the Arabs call that particular month Ramadan because they always experience the fast in the middle of summer. Simply because, just like, people in the modern world, and I think the Jewish community in America does that, where they offset the calendar every 4 years so that it's still compatible or still in line with the Gregorian calendar. So the Arabs used to do the same thing, and there's a month of Rajab that they used to manipulate every couple of years so that the year stays as is. It furthers their business interests and their travels and stuff like that. So it was always hot and extremely warm in the middle of summer. But then there's also the deeper meaning for the month of Ramadan, and that is us taking advantage of a heightened state of spirituality, taking advantage of a heightened state of concentration and focus on the soul, on the spirit, on what really matters in this world, in order to set ourselves on this spiritual fire that helps us throughout the rest of the year. It ignites our batteries. It reinforces our strength. It fills our tanks so that we're able to go on the journey and face the challenges that we need to face. And I think that the biggest challenge we face as a human community is a challenge to coexist with the other and make sacrifices for the sake of others that you don't necessarily know and you don't necessarily care about. To feel for people that are not your family, that are not your friends. To care about them and to make sacrifices from your own self, from your own life, in order to support them and help them. This is one of our biggest challenges. We are relatively good with whom we know, but we are really, really miserable when it comes to strangers. Stranger is a stranger. I don't care about strangers. But Ramadan teaches us to care about strangers because it is entirely about the charitable spirit. What is it that you do to be in the service of your brothers and sisters in humanity? In Ramadan, we are supposed to invite people to our homes, to accept invitations if we can. We're supposed to give the poor and needy. There is an obligatory charity that is given in the month of Ramadan. Just from Salam alone, we collect probably over $50,000 or $60,000 for that mandatory charity in addition to any other donations we collect. And that money is entirely going to the poor, needy, and less fortunate in our community. We fast in the month of Ramadan to reinforce the sense of family because we sit down with our brothers and sisters, with our spouses, fathers or mothers who work. They make a point to be at home at iftar time so that they enjoy that meal with their children. They make sure that they connect with their extended families, their cousins, uncles, and aunts, and nieces, and nephews, and bring the family together. We connect with our wider family, our brothers and sisters in the community, even people with whom we don't share the same understanding of God or the same methods by which we can worship Him. They are still with us here. And we enjoy that Ramadan meal with them. And that is a fundamental spirit of the month of Ramadan. But I feel, if you ask me, what is it that matters the most to you in the month of Ramadan, I say it is the attainment of spiritual power. To attain spiritual power. To truly feel that you're connected with God, that you walk in the shade of His grace, that you are enjoying His blessings. I am fasting. My wife is fasting. My children are fasting. Zainab is only 10 and Adam is 7. But she decided to start fasting 2 years ago. Against our will. Against our advice and recommendation. I think she is here, right? Zainab, are you here? Yeah, she's right there. Please encourage her with a good round of applause. She's fasting, but she doesn't look really tired. I think I'm a lot more tired than her. She's been jumping around all day with her brothers. But I see her, and I see the strength in her. I see the strength in my 7-year-old Adam, who kids in his age otherwise would rather enjoy ice cream and snacks and crackers and sandwiches all day long. And he's going about his business, playing his iPad games, reciting his Quran, memorizing his surahs, reading his books, going on his physical exercise. They go swimming and karate in the days of Ramadan, unfaltering and unrelenting while fasting. My kids inspire me. My little children inspire adults in our community. The children of our community inspire the adults of our community with their strength and resolve. And that's why every Ramadan we have one night in our nights of worship and prayer that we dedicate to the children of the Muslim community that are so strong. All the children younger than 10 that are fasting this year. However number of days, some of them, they skip a day or whatever. However number of days, however number of hours, once they make that statement, we celebrate them and celebrate their strength and resolve. The gist of this is that when I look at a child that is able to fast on Ramadan and still go about their daily business and exercise and meetings, and it's not groggy and it's not cranky and is not crying, is not yelling and losing a temper, right? I feel like there is nothing in this world that I cannot do or cannot achieve. Right? If I can operate normally under such tough circumstances and still maintain my cool and carry myself in a respectful and loving and empathetic manner, there are no obstacles that can stop me as a human being and as a Muslim and as a man and as a father and as a parent and as an imam leading a very difficult community and as a citizen of this country and as an Egyptian American. Speaking of what's happening in Egypt right now. Very, very depressing. I lost friends, by the way, in the past couple of weeks who were just taken out, sniped by government soldiers. And you try to balance that, you know, the care and the interest you have in the old country with your obligations in this society, in this community, with your obligations towards your brothers and sisters, towards our mosque, towards the wider community, my own family, my own children, people that trust me, right? Challenges on top of challenges. And in Ramadan, we're able to see the light through all of this. Because God tells us in the Quran, I will never burden someone's shoulder with a weight that he or she cannot carry. And therefore I look at the burden on my shoulder and say, Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. For this is something I know deep inside that I'm able to carry and I'm able to cope with. Ramadan provides you with that spiritual strength, spiritual tolerance, spiritual perseverance. Little small obstacles and distractions, little bashing here and there, little attack on us or me here and there are really small. They don't matter that much anymore. There's a course that has been charted for us. The men and women of faith, whatever religion you come from, whatever tradition you belong to, we are the handful of people in this world that still recognize the Lord and His presence and His power and His grace. You call Him whatever you want to call Him, but at the end of the day, we all serve Him. And we all want His content and His pleasure. And we all want to see all of our brothers and sisters happier in His presence. And we all want to serve Him in the service of humanity. That small handful of men and women of faith that is us is something to be proud of. Something to cling to in a world that doesn't admire faith anymore. That doesn't place so much emphasis on values and principles beyond human structures anymore. It gives me great pride to belong to that community. I'm Muslim. I put my head on my pillow comfortably with the truth that I've chosen for myself at the end of the night. But I'm also very, very proud to belong to this beautiful community of men and women of faith who love for their neighbors what they love for themselves. Who love for their brothers and sisters what they love for themselves. Who make sacrifices, who go out of their ways in order to serve others. Who have left family and friends and other obligations to be here with us tonight to show support to their brothers and sisters in the Muslim community. I commend you, I applaud you, and I honor you. And I pray to the Almighty, to God, the source of grace, power, and wisdom, the source of love and empathy. I pray to shower His blessings upon each and every one of you, to strengthen you, to give you patience and perseverance, to bring you closer to each other as brothers and sisters, and to help you do everything you can to serve the rest of your community, and to utilize you for good. And for as long as there is a breath of air in our chests, I ask God to keep us on His course, to give us patience, to help us respond to evil with good, and to help us be catalysts of beauty everywhere we go and with everything we do. God bless you all. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullah.
So my little gaffe there reminded me of two things. Remember I told you that the last hour of fasting is the most difficult hour. So maybe I can blame that. It's also a month of forgiveness, so I will ask the imam to please excuse me for jumping ahead on the schedule. So now I believe we are at the point where we would like to present the Salam Distinguished Award and thank our sponsors for this evening. So now I'd like to ask Dr. Metwali to please come up.
Thank you very much, Imam Aziz. My wife Rosalie is working tonight, but she will join us at 8:30. And since she's not here, My other 4 wives really love me. Do my major assignment tonight. I have several items to do. Number 1 is to introduce the clergy. So honor us by their presence tonight. I try to make them alphabetically. Reverend Lloyd Hansen, please stand up and keep standing until I finish, and then we'll give you a blow. Lloyd Hansen, yes. Reverend Alan Jones of St. Mark's. Reverend Virginia McNeely of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. She's not here. Oh, she is. Reverend Kevin Roth of Christ Unity Church. Okay. And Father Mike Gardner. And Reverend David Thompson, and Reverend Christine Martin. Anyone else that I did not recognize? Okay, thank you very much. Now, special announcement, Reverend Christine Martin just joined Sacramento recently, and she's going to be installed this coming Sunday at 4 o'clock at the Pioneer Congregational Church, 2700 LSD. She was going to be the new pastor of the Experience that has been headed by Reverend Dr. David Thompson, who is also going to retire at the same time at the same part this Sunday. So we wish them good will, and make the announcement if you'd like to join that joint part, retirement for David Thompson, and also restoration for Christine Martin. Please stand up again and take your hand. Now, the sponsors, major sponsors of this annual event, the Salam and Ron and Haduli, please stand up also, they keep standing. And both of them are the owner of the Sunrise Event Center, Lovely Center, at the corner of Trade and Sunrise. The Sharif family, can see them stand up. Mahmoud and Hazim, and Osama Hassoun, unfortunately, he would make it tonight. He is in LA for an important event. William Rosary Amir, and Rosary will join us later, as I said. His Lupi is out of the country. Other sponsors, Jabez Siddiqui, it is, and Ayat al-Qazzaz. By the way, Professor Qazzaz invited his class, a small class that really dedicated to study the Middle East and Islam, and he invited them with him tonight. So I'd like to this time really invite the whole class to join the 5 o'clock. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the evening. The organizers, the professional Liliana staff, Kristen, Graham, Kristen Skater, and Brittany Chandler. Where are you? Oh, here they are. And the next generation, the younger generation of the Sharif family, Salam and Laila Sharif. And our office manager, Adnan Said, who is here, he is at the door. There you are. If you look to the table in front of you, you'll find olive oil, right? And this is an annual gift from the Sharif family. They are very kind. You don't have to be rich and famous to visit Sharif Joel. So please take one. We're assuming that they will be family, husband and wife. But if you need more, I think we have more here in the room there. Just stop by when you leave. If you don't take one and then help yourself. Steve Cohen. Where's Steve? Here he is. Now, our board of trustees of Salam, a month ago, decided its meeting to choose the one and only Steve Nagagni, a reporter, senior reporter of the Sacramento Bee, to receive this year Salam Distinguished Award for outstanding interfaith and community service. Why did we choose him? For the following: his objective and well-balanced report, his focus on ethnic and religious minorities, his concern on issues related to civil rights, race relations, diversity, tolerance, and foreign affairs, his even-handedness in presenting opposing views, his emphasis on those whose stories need to be told. It is my pleasure to ask our brother or my friend Steve Nagagni to come to the podium to receive the award, and also to ask the chairman of the board and also the director of religious and social services, Imam Aziz, to join me in presenting the award.
I see a room full of people that have been in my story, so thank you for keeping my job going. Last week I went to the Sacramento Urban League to speak to about 50 young black professionals. You know what they said? They said, they came from Chicago, Texas, New York, and they said they came to Sacramento because it was a welcoming place. And we know also that Iraqis, Pakistanis, Burmese, Afghanis, Mexicans, Salvadorans, Russians, Ukrainians from around the world have come here and found this to be a welcoming place. Now, my own journey here began in 2001 at the iftar when Metwali Amr invited me to come by, and I really knew nothing about Islam or Muslims. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, the same neighborhood as Ben Wagner, and there is a street in our neighborhood called Atlantic Avenue where there are many Arabs and Muslims. I would stop by there on the way home from school and buy some Syrian bread. And that was my entire interaction with Muslims and Arabs. So I really knew nothing until Metwali brought me in. And there are other bridge builders in this room that have played a significant role as well. So I came and I learned about the breaking of the fast, and I talked to a lot of dedicated Muslim American kids that had been fasting, and one whispered in my ear, if you're going to do this, you should suck on the dental floss. I guess that was one way to slake their appetite. Now the other thing that I saw that day was I saw the amazing diversity among the Muslim Americans in Sacramento. And we had diversity in the newsroom. The editor at the time, he's here tonight, was Rick Rodriguez, who is Russian and Mexican. And he just basically said, go out and find the stories. And so I wrote a very long story, as I tend to do, about Muslims from all over the world that live here in Sacramento. And they came from various African countries. They came from Vietnam. They came from the Middle East. Some were Latino Muslims. We met one tonight. And I wrote a pretty in-depth story about this. And several weeks later, we were hit by 9/11. And I've said this before, and I'm proud of this in Sacramento. We had virtually no backlash to 9/11 in Sacramento because of people like you in this room that have built such strong bridges across faith and race and ethnicity. And so that is where that journey began. And I know a little bit something about Islam now, thanks to the people in this room. And again, I'm so grateful to all of you and what you have done. And I'm wearing a tie. I don't know if you see it. Nelson Mandela is on this tie. And one of the great things Mr. Rodriguez did was he sent me to cover the election in South Africa. Before I talk a little bit about that, I've learned that there are many paths to the kingdom of heaven. Islam is one of them. The managing editor of The Bee is here. He's a nice Jewish boy from Baltimore, Scott Labar. My day editor is also a nice Jewish guy from Baltimore, Maury Mock. And they believe in difference, and they believe in diversity, and they believe in good stories, and they believe in the entire community. And so they say, go out and find the stories. We don't care what color anybody is. We don't care what they believe. Just find their truth. And it is such a gift to be able to do that. And in the last week, I'll tell you about two people that I met. One is from Africa. Her name is Matilde Makantapana. She was a refugee from Rwanda. She came here. She became a professor at Kasundus River College, and the week she started, her whole family was slaughtered in Rwanda. And here's what she said. She said that once you lose your family, you find your own family, a new family. And she found a new family in Sacramento. And the environment here, she said, was something that let me get beyond my own narcissistic suffering. And she became the leading voice, perhaps in the world, on the genocide of Rwanda, and helped Rwandan refugees settle here, and has gone back numerous times, trained hundreds of social workers, and saved hundreds of orphans. And she is part of our community here. The other guy I hung out with is a Vietnamese refugee named Tim Do. Tim Do tried to escape from Vietnam numerous times. He couldn't get a boat, he couldn't get gas. He finally got a fishing boat with 70 people. He had to pilot the boat. He didn't know how to pilot a boat. The boat capsized off the coast of Malaysia. And all 70 people went overboard, and he and his crew swam between the shore of the boat to save everybody on that boat. He made it to Thailand, to the refugee camp, where he had no place to lie down because it was so packed. He couldn't barely stand up. They had to sleep on latrines for weeks. And he saw people die of disease. And he made it to the Philippines, where he learned English, and he came to the United States, and he learned English, and he delivered newspapers. And then he went to mechanic school, and he fixed boats in Monterey. And then he came to Sacramento, and he took over a food truck. And now he owns a depot for all the food trucks in Sacramento. And he's a multi-millionaire, and he just built the Vietnamese Community Center for Sacramento with his own money. And he got out there with the forklifts, and he poured the concrete and put on the windows and doors. But he believes in all faiths. He's building a Vietnamese Baptist church across the street. He's building a new Vietnamese temple. And he sent his kids to Catholic school. And when the air conditioning broke down, he climbed up on the roof and he fixed it. And those are the kinds of people that we have encouraged and invited to Sacramento. And it makes me proud to be here, to be a part of that. Now, in South Africa, I saw something amazing when I covered that election. I didn't see anger. I didn't see retribution. I saw joy. And this, I think, emanated from the great Nelson Mandela, who is still with us. And I have a few words that he said. He said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And Salam has done it by bringing in Jews and Christians and Protestants and breaking down those barriers and demystifying this community. And a couple of other things that Mr. Mandela said. He said, I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps trying. And here is what he said about race. He said, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. So thank you all for loving your neighbors in Sacramento and making this such a welcoming place.
Now we have 3 minutes left, and I'd like to have a volunteer from the clergy to really say a Interfaith bridge building prayer. Very short and sweet. Any volunteers? David?
Like Catholic friends, you can't sit
Let's all pray. Dear God, thank you for wow.
Did you do that?
Throw that.
What did Krishna do to the microphone? The last time.
I am now going to wipe Imam Aziz. Hang on to the microphone the whole time. Let us all pray. Allah, God of us all, God of the Jews, God of the Christians, God of our new Pope, God of every believing heart, God of all the seekers and the agnostics, God of the atheists, the old and the tiny children, come, be with us, sit at our tables. We thank you for Salam and for this breaking of the fast. Amen.
I'd now like to ask Brother Adnan to come up. He's going to recite the Azan, which is the mark of when it's time for us to break our fast. And
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
please enjoy the refreshments.
I asked this way.
And please enjoy your meal. Thank you.